does. Okay.
Yeah, isn't
Here.
a selfie defined by doing it yourself?
He did it through me as human.
I
don't think his paws are long enough.
Why do you like that about his legs? He's so sensitive. Oh my gosh, this video has started off poorly.
What are you about?
I'm not even gonna, you know what? Can't even look at you right now. Which is fine because I can't see you over. Okay, now I can see you. All right. Please, if you're watching this video, excuse the very hurtful statement about the lengths of my dog's legs.
I just want to put a logo that says "Oh hi."
He's high. We're gonna make this a Lomo or Instagram effect. And Lomo is a plastic camera, and Instagram is that app in your phone that shifts the color, shifts the focus, and does some special effects. So we're gonna do the special effects, but we're gonna do them kind of the slow, long, hard way, which is awesome. First, we're going to duplicate our background. Okay. I'm going to select the crop tool. And my notes are pretty thorough on this, but please feel free to get a little more experimental with them. Because if you look at those apps, they are kind of experimental. I am going to crop it. I'm going to delete the crop pixels. Keep it as a square because Instagram is square. Excuse me. I'm going to add a curves layer to the very top. And I'm going to bump the contrast. I can do that by using a preset. Adding some contrast. When you add an S curve, it increases the contrast. So if I were to grab these points and affect them even further, you can see that with that adjustment layer, I've already started to add a lot of contrast. You can experiment with the cross-process preset. If you go to this preset for cross-processing, it will start to shift the colors. Thank you. And that can be kind of fun. And you can go into each channel and play around with the channel. In this case, you've got a lot more freedom because some of the things that Instagram and the Lomo do are really distort the colors. All right, so let's leave them like that. That's got kind of this nice warm feel to it. You can change the blending mode of this layer to soft light. If you'd like to. You can also change the opacity of it. I'm going to leave it at normal because I like the look. Or maybe, let's see, overlay. I like the overlay look. Then I'm going to go back to RGB. Just open that up a little bit. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is add a white vignette. I'm going to make a new layer, edit, fill, and use white. Name that layer white fill. And add a layer mask to it. Grab the brush. Make sure you have a nice soft brush. Opacity starts as 100. And then from the inside out, I work from the center toward the edges. So it's 100% pure black in the center. And then if you hit 7 on your keyboard, it automatically changes the brush to 70%. I'm going to keep working out. I'm going to hit 5 to change the brush to 50%. And keep working out from the center. And then I'm going to hit 1 to change it to 10%. And then go all the way to the center. What that's doing is that white is creating some emphasis and then also just kind of getting rid of some of the information that we don't really need. It's a little distracting. I am going to cheat a little bit and bring his face back in and then go back here. Oops. We're making an Instagram of Walter. So we just added our vignette. Let's take down the layer a little bit. But now you can see that we're starting to get into some of the special effects. All right. Now we need to convert it for smart filters. We need a stamp visible layer, Shift Command Option E, stamp visible, filter, convert for smart filters, and let's go to filter, blur, and we're going to add a little bit of a motion blur. Not something crazy like that. something kind of fun. If you look at the Lomo or the Instagram, areas are in focus and then other areas are like really soft. So this is what we're going to do. Let's move over to see his face and then the before and after. And again, I'm going to edit this layer mask with an 80% brush by hitting 8 on the keyboard and then removing some of the effect from his eyes because I want his eyes to be clear. It's very subtle. You could always go in and increase it if you are feeling a little risky. And maybe bring a little bit back into his face. Because it'll look very strange if his face is perfectly sharp. Okay. And you can see the gray on the Smart Filter. That gray on that layer mask is saying that there's various opacities being used on the brush. Let's change the layer mode to overlay. Excuse me. Let's bring the opacity of that layer down. It's pretty aggressive. Maybe we change it to soft light. Bring the opacity back up. Yeah, soft light looks good. Remember, you can, with the move tool selected, you can hit Shift plus or minus to move through all of the options. For the blending options, let's move this back up to 100. I think lighten looks pretty good. Turn that back on and off. Okay. Then we're going to add a new blank layer, and we're going to darken the edges. And this is how I also add a vignette in Photoshop. Grab a big, thick brush with black in the foreground. Okay, or hit D. That puts black in the foreground. Brush at 100%. You're going to darken up some of these areas. Now, change it from normal to soft light. And you can see it does quite a bit. And you might be like, well, aren't the vignette layer, the white vignette layer, and this black vignette layer kind of fighting each other? And they are. They're in opposition to each other, but they're giving you very subtle effects. All right. So you'll notice that certain shadows are very bold, and certain highlights are still kind of remaining very faded. Okay. You can use any brush opacity that you want on there if you want to add a little bit back, but you don't want it to be 100%.
Are you erasing or?
I am using X to add white and add black. So if I add white, it is going to lighten up a part. If I add black and I change the opacity of the brush by hitting 2, it's going to allow me to strategically add and subtract exposure, right? So I'm darkening parts of it and lightening parts of it very locally. All right. If you make a mistake on this layer because it is just vignette information, you can also use the eraser on this layer. All right, now we're going to do a lens flare. Let's make a new layer, hit Fill, use black, hit OK, call it lens flare. Convert it for Smart Filters. And go to Filter, Render, Lens Flare. Yeah, these can be kind of cool. You can pick the kind of lens that you want. Maybe we'll use the 105 prime. And then we can, yeah, this is the business, all right? Plastic lens cameras are notorious for lens flares. Let's change this to screen. Take down the opacity a little. You can also move that effect around if you want it to be not directly on his face. And you can always soften the edges by adding a layer mask. Let's see how it looks if I do soft light. Soft light really doesn't give you the whole, actually that doesn't look bad. With soft light, that flare looks pretty good. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to change it to 1 to screen and 1 to soft light, and then I'm just going to take the opacity of that one down because I want my cake, and then I also would like to eat it. right? So if I want one layer at soft light, all I have to do is duplicate this layer and put it on another. If I think it's too aggressive in the face, I can affect it right here using the layer mask. Now we are almost done. We're going to expand our layers. With the top layer selected, go to Hue and Saturation, Adjustment Layer, and let's tweak the colors a little bit. Make them a little blue, a little purple, a little green. I like to go in and see what some of the presets are.
Oh yeah, he looks like Aquaman because green.
He could swim.
Walter,
Because he's got like the orange and then he's got like the blue dog.
I kind of like the red boost. What do you think? It's not too much. I might saturate that red boost even more. You can see the reds in the face. Not too far. Although you could. I mean, these are all presets. You can go. There's not really a wrong or a right. There's just a different and a less different. But I like to go in and adjust certain colors. In this case, I'm going to go into the blues and kind of play with that a little bit. So it's a little bit purple. Okay, I can also change the opacity of this layer if I want some of that and not all of it. And the last thing I'm going to do is add a small blur to the overall image by Shift Command Option E, doing another stamp visible, filter convert for smart filter, and then filter blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to do a really small, just a really small blur to the whole thing. Hit OK, and then with a brush at low opacity, maybe 60, I'm going to go in and just remove some of that effect from the face so the eyes are tack sharp. You can see that effect happening right there. You can make any final adjustments to color using hue and saturation or a color balance layer. You want to warm it up a little bit. You could also add a photo filter layer and use any of these preset filters and increase or decrease the density of that filter. These are all ways to add little tweaks of color. And the last thing let's do is go to Edit. Let's see. I would like to do is go and add a little thin black border around it. I'm going to go Shift Command Option E, make one more stamp visible at the very top, go Edit, Stroke, change this to 10, Edit, Stroke, put it on the inside, change it to 20, and then it gives it a little black border. And F takes you through full screen. So if we look at it before and after by holding down the Option key and clicking on the eye, you can see kind of an ordinary photo, but now it's got all sorts of pizzazz. And my goal for showing you this is that you can really play with the colors and the adjustment layers and also these different fill layers to target certain parts and create the emphasis and the lighting that you want.